The desperate transmission, the crystalline cities of Ethereos, floated like diamonds against the violet sky, suspended by harmonics that the Etherians had mastered over 10 millennia of peaceful advancement. Their civilization had evolved beyond the need for conflict, their bodies transformed into beings of pure thought, housed in shells of living light. They communicated through colors that danced across their translucent forms, created art from starlight itself, and had turned their entire star system into a garden of knowledge, where young species came to learn the ways of peace. High Harmonizer. Lysara drifted through the grand archive, her essence glowing with the soft gold of contentment as she reviewed the latest cultural exchanges with neighboring systems. The Etherians had long served as mediators in the local cluster, their neutrality and wisdom respected by even the most aggressive species. They possessed no weapons, for they had discovered that true strength came from understanding, not destruction. Their defensive philosophy relied entirely on shields and diplomatic solutions, a strategy that had served them well for thousands of years. The first sign of trouble came as a distortion in the fabric of space itself. Lysara's essence flickered to deep purple with concern as the long-range sensors detected something unprecedented. Ships were emerging from fold space at the edge of their system, but these were unlike any vessels in their extensive databases. They were angular, predatory things that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, each one bristling with weapons that made the Etherian scientists recoil in horror. The Vorthic Empire had found them. Supreme Conquest Master Thrax stood on the command throne of his flagship, the Void Render, his 6 eyes gleaming with anticipation. The Vorthek were an ancient species that had evolved in the darkness between stars, feeding on cosmic radiation and the fear of lesser beings. They stood 12 feet tall, their bodies covered in chitinous armor that could withstand the vacuum of space, their 4 arms ending in claws that could tear through steel. They had built their empire on a simple principle: the strong consumed. The weak and the Vorthic were always the strongest. "Begin the harvest protocol," Thrax commanded, his voice a grinding sound like tectonic plates shifting. "The Etherians' mental energies will fuel our next expansion. Their knowledge will be extracted, their essence drained, and their worlds will become breeding grounds for our warrior caste." The Vorthic fleet, numbering over 300 vessels, moved through the Etherian system like a plague of locusts. The outer observation stations simply ceased to exist, vaporized by weapons that violated several galactic treaties the Vorthic had never signed. The peaceful researchers aboard those stations had only moments to transmit their final observations before being reduced to atoms. Lysara convened the Harmony Council in emergency session, the 12 wisest Etherians forming a circle of light. In the great chamber, their combined luminescence created a beacon of hope that could be seen from orbit, but hope was fading fast. They reached out with messages of peace, offering to share their knowledge freely, proposing treaties and exchanges that would benefit both species. The Vothek response was to broadcast images of other peaceful species they had conquered, showing Etherians exactly what fate awaited them. "They cannot be reasoned with," spoke Elder Cosmos, his essence dimming with despair. "We have sent communications to the Galactic Council, but they fear the Vorthic too much to intervene. The militant species demand payment we cannot give, for we have nothing of war to trade." It was the youngest member of the council, Scholar Prism, who proposed the impossible. She had spent decades studying ancient records, exploring databases that predated their current level of enlightenment. In files so old they were stored on quantum crystals that barely functioned. She had found references to a species from the galactic rim, from a world so hostile that most xenobiologists refused to believe it could support intelligent life. "They call themselves humans," Prism explained, her essence shifting through rapid color changes as she shared the data directly with the Council. "Their world, Earth or Terra as they name it, experiences constant geological upheaval. The surface. Temperature varies by over 100 degrees across seasons. The atmosphere contains oxygen, a toxic and corrosive gas that actually fuels fires. The planet's surface is 70% covered in a liquid that dissolves nearly everything. Yet these beings are made primarily of that same liquid. The Council absorbed this information with skepticism. How could such a species exist? But Prism continued, showing them more impossible facts. Humans had evolved alongside countless predators, survived ice ages, plagues that would exterminate most species, and most remarkably, they had survived each other. Their history was written in conflict, yet they had somehow united their world, and reached for the stars not as conquerors, but as explorers. The records suggest they possess something unique. Prism pulsed urgently. They will fight harder for others than for themselves. They have a concept they call righteous fury that activates when they witness injustice. If these records are accurate, they might be our only hope. The debate was brief. With the Vorthic fleet already conquering the outer colonies and approaching Etherios itself, they had no alternatives. Lysara herself helped craft the message, pouring every ounce of desperation and hope into the transmission that would be sent toward the distant coordinates where Earth supposedly existed. The message punched through subspace at maximum power, depleting half their energy reserves in a single burst. To any human vessel receiving this transmission, we are the Etherians, a peaceful species facing complete annihilation. The Vorthic Empire systematically destroys all who cannot fight. We have no weapons, no warriors, only wisdom we freely share. Our children are being harvested for their mental energy. Our culture, 10,000 years of peaceful advancement, will be erased. The records say humans understand justice. If you can hear this, if you have the strength to help those who cannot help themselves, please come. We offer nothing but friendship and the hope that goodness still exists in this dark universe. Time is measured in days now. Please. The signal raced across the void, carrying the last hope of billions of peaceful beings. Most of the Council believed it was futile. Even if humans existed, even if they received the message, why would they risk themselves for strangers? The Vorthic fleet was massive, their technology proven in 100 conquered systems. What could one species do against such darkness? 3 days passed in agony. The Vorthic had taken 5 more systems, each conquest broadcast to Etherios as psychological warfare. Supreme Conquest Master Thrax personally sent messages showing Etherians being processed into energy extraction devices. Their beautiful light slowly drained away until only empty crystalline shells remained. He wanted them to understand their fate, to break their spirit before the final assault dot in the depths of human space. Aboard the United Earth Defense Force Dreadnought Perseverance, Commander Jessica Rodriguez was reviewing patrol reports when her communications officer, Lieutenant David Park, suddenly straightened in his chair with an expression she had never seen before. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from unknown space. It's using a subspace frequency we haven't seen in decades, but the emotional content." He paused, his voice catching. "You need to hear this yourself." Rodriguez listened to the message, and something fundamental shifted in the bridge's atmosphere. Every human who heard it felt the same thing, a cold rage building in their chest, the kind their ancestors had felt when witnessing atrocities. Without waiting for orders, Rodriguez commanded the signal be relayed to Earth with flash priority, adding her own recommendation. Humanity needed. Innocents dying. Request immediate maximum response. The message reached Earth's Defense Council within hours. President Shen Wei, a historian before entering politics, recognized the moment for what it was. Humanity had spent a century preparing for this exact scenario. They had studied their own dark history, the times they had failed to act when genocide occurred, and had sworn never again. The vote was unanimous. Admiral Michael Thompson, commanding the Fifth Fleet, received orders that were simple and clear. Take everything. Stop the genocide. Show the galaxy what humans do to those who prey on the innocent. The human response was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. It wasn't just a military fleet that departed from Earth's orbital stations. It was a force of nature, given purpose. 48 ships, each one a testament to human engineering and determination, departed together. These weren't the largest ships in known space, but they were built by a species that had learned to do more with less, to turn disadvantage into strength. Captain Rodriguez, given command of the advance squadron, pushed her ships beyond their rated limits. The journey that should have taken weeks was completed in days, the human crews accepting the discomfort and danger because they knew every hour mattered. As they traveled, they studied everything available about both species. What they learned about the Vorthic filled them with disgust. This wasn't war for resources or territory. This was predation, pure and simple. The first human ships arrived at the edge of the Etherian system like whispers of thunder. 8 vessels, scouts by human standards, materialized from fold space with precision that spoke of long practice. Captain Rodriguez immediately deployed. Sensor drones mapping the battlefield with military efficiency. The situation was worse than expected. Over 2 million Etherians were already in captivity, their life forces being slowly drained aboard massive processor ships. Rodriguez made a decision that would echo through history. Rather than wait for the main fleet, she opened communications on all Vorthic frequencies. Her message was simple, delivered in perfect Vorthic dialect that their translation systems had decoded during the journey. Vorthic Fleet, I am Captain Jessica Rodriguez of the United Earth Defense Force. You have 6 hours to release all Etherian captives and withdraw from the system. This is your only warning. Humanity has arrived. Asterisk thunder and Liberation Supreme Conquest Master Thrax's laughter echoed through his command ship when he received the human transmission. 8 tiny vessels against his armada of 300. He ordered his tactical officers to scan these newcomers, curious about what delusion drove them to such foolishness. The results made his laughter die. The human ships were impossibly dense, their power signatures reading like miniature stars. Their hulls were composed of materials that shouldn't exist, alloys that bent sensor readings and seemed to absorb energy rather than reflect it. Impossible, muttered his science officer, frantically recalibrating the sensors. These readings suggest each vessel has the power generation of a small moon. Their weapons. Supreme One, I cannot identify half of their weapon signatures. They're using technologies we've never encountered. Thrax's 6 eyes narrowed. No matter. Numbers would prevail as they always had. He ordered his fleet into attack formation, confident that even unknown weapons couldn't overcome a 40-1 advantage. He had conquered species with superior technology before. These humans would be no different. 4 hours into the deadline, space itself seemed to scream. The main human fleet arrived not gradually, but all at once, 40 more ships, tearing into reality with synchronized precision that suggested a hive mind, though the Vorthic knew humans were individuals. Admiral Thompson's flagship, the UES Retribution, was smaller than Thrax's Void Render, but it radiated menace like a compressed star. Admiral Michael Thompson stood on his bridge, studying the tactical display with eyes that had seen too much of humanity's own dark past. He was descended from survivors of Earth's ancient genocides, and he carried their memory like armor against doubt. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency, no trace of fear despite facing overwhelming odds. Open. A channel to the Vorthic commander, Thompson ordered. When Thrax's grotesque form appeared on the main screen, Thompson spoke with quiet authority that carried more weight than any shout. Supreme Conquest Master Thrax, I am Admiral Michael Thompson, You were given 6 hours. You now have one. Begin releasing the Etherians immediately, or face the consequences. Thrax's 4 arms spread in a gesture of contempt. You dare threaten the Vorthic Empire? We have consumed 100 species. Your pathetic fleet will be scattered atoms within minutes of engagement. Surrender now and I might make your deaths quick. Thompson's smile was something that had evolved in Earth's darkest places, the expression of a predator that had clawed its way to the top of the food chain through intelligence rather than size. Commander, let me share something about humans. We evolved on a world where everything tried to kill us. We survived ice ages, meteor impacts, plagues that killed millions, and wars that nearly ended our species. But we learned something from all that death. We learned that the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. And we're done doing nothing. The hour passed with agonizing tension. The Etherians watched from there. Whirled as 2 fleets faced each other, one massive and dark like a storm cloud, the other smaller but burning with purpose like stars gone nova. When the deadline expired, Admiral Thompson gave a single order: execute Operation Deliverance. What followed would be studied by military academies across the galaxy for millennia, though no other species could truly replicate it. The human. Ships moved not like individual vessels, but like a single organism with multiple bodies. They didn't just use energy weapons and missiles. They used weapons born from a species that had turned creativity itself into a survival tool. Kinetic rounds, accelerated to percentages of light speed, punched through Vorthic shields as if they were made of paper. Swarms of AI-guided drones, each one carrying the compressed fury of their creators, overwhelmed point defense systems. Electronic warfare suites, developed by humans who had been hacking each other's systems since the dawn of their computer age, turned Vorthic ships against their own fleet. But what truly terrified the Vorthic was how the humans fought. They didn't rage or panic. They communicated with calm professionalism, even making jokes as they systematically dismantled a fleet that had terrorized the galaxy. They fought like this was just another day at work, like destroying tyrants was something they were born to do. Sergeant Marcus Williams led the boarding team that breached the first processor ship. His powered armor, scarred from a dozen previous missions, enhanced his already formidable strength to superhuman levels. But it was what drove him that made him unstoppable. He had grown up on Mars, where his grandparents had told him stories of Earth's failures, times when humanity had stood by while innocents suffered. Not today. Not ever again. The Vorthak guards, despite their natural armor and 4 arms, were unprepared for humans in close combat. Humans didn't just fight with weapons. They fought with the accumulated experience of a species that had been perfecting war for millennia. But more than that, they fought with moral certainty. Every human on those boarding teams knew they were saving innocence, and that knowledge gave them strength beyond any physical enhancement. Processing chamber secured, Williams reported, his voice steady despite the carnage around him. Beginning liberation protocol. His team's medics immediately began disconnecting Etherians from the extraction devices, their gentle handling, contrasting sharply with the violence they had just unleashed. The Etherians, weak from their ordeal, pulsed with colors of confusion and growing hope as these terrifying warriors treated them with unexpected kindness. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted exactly 93 minutes. The human fleet had disabled or destroyed every Vorthic weapon system while leaving the crews alive. It was a message more powerful than any words. Humans could have killed them all, but chose not to. They were demonstrating the difference between strength and cruelty, between justice and vengeance. Supreme Conquest Master Thrax found himself on his knees, his bridge in ruins around him, facing Captain Rodriguez, who had personally led the boarding party that took his flagship. She stood before him, her armor scarred but unbroken, her weapon lowered but ready. Why? Thrax asked, his voice broken. Why fight for them? They are weak. They have nothing to offer you. Why risk your lives for strangers? Rodriguez removed her helmet, revealing a face that could have belonged to any human, unremarkable except for the determination in her eyes. Because that's what makes us human. We fight for those who can't fight for themselves. We stand up to bullies, whether they're in our schoolyard or across the galaxy. And we never, ever let genocide happen if we can stop it. The aftermath reshaped galactic politics forever. The Vorthic Empire collapsed within months, their conquered species liberated by human task forces who seemed to appear wherever oppression existed. The Etherians, saved from extinction, became humanity's closest allies, their wisdom combined with human strength, creating a partnership that brought peace to entire sectors. But perhaps the most profound change was in how the galaxy viewed humanity. They weren't the monsters from a death world that many had feared. They were protectors, warriors who chose to be shepherds rather than wolves. The message spread to every corner of known space. If you prey on the innocent, if you bring genocide and slavery, humanity will come. And when they do, all your strength will mean nothing against their righteous fury. High Harmonizer Lasara, her essence restored to its full golden radiance, stood beside Admiral Thompson as they watched the last Vorthic ship limp away from Etherian space. We owe you everything, she pulsed, her colors conveying gratitude beyond words. How can we ever repay this debt? Thompson smiled, a genuine expression this time, warm and human. There's no debt. But if you want to honor what we've done, make us a promise. If you ever hear another call for help from any species anywhere, you pass it on to us. We've got plenty of ships, and we're always ready to remind the universe that sometimes the monsters need to fear the dark too. The Etherians kept that promise. In the years that followed, they became humanity's ears in the galaxy, forwarding every distress call, every plea for help. And humanity always answered. They became known not as conquerors or empire builders, but as something far more powerful, the species that would cross the galaxy to save strangers, the warriors who chose to be heroes, the Deathworlders who had turned their evolutionary curse into the galaxy's greatest blessing. The ancient records had been right about one thing above all else. Humans would fight harder for others than for themselves. And in a galaxy full of predators and prey, they had chosen to be something entirely different. They had chosen to be hope itself, armed and dangerous. Asterisk.